Hello and welcome. My name is Kubeir. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant. This channel is all about Canadian immigration news, updates, things you should do, things you should not with your Canadian immigration application. And first off the bat, I want to remind each one of you that if you're an aspiring Canadian immigration individual, then you should always have an active express entry profile regardless of the score. It doesn't matter what your score is. If you're eligible, you should have your express entry profile always active in the pool, because you just do not know what can happen at what point of time, which province might suddenly be interested in your profile, what can IRCC come up and do. So always as a matter of practice, always have your profile active in the express entry pool. Welcome to another episode of our Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup, today being a Saturday, so welcome on that. We will go through a short presentation. We will talk about the weekly draws. We will talk about anything different that must have happened. Of course, we will also talk about the express entry draw, which happened last week, and why it is so exciting, because the tagline for today's video is Express Entry is now forever hopeful. My tagline also happens to be Express Entry tagline, because express entry certainly is looking very promising, certainly looking more exciting than it earlier has been over the last few months. So it's comparison between those months and now. So don't get all excited with, as an all-time hopeful. But yeah, for the time being, given the grim circumstances that it has gone through over the last couple of years, it's looking more hopeful than ever. We will talk about that, and after that we will come to the section of question and answer. So please hold your questions till we get to that stage, and once we get there, then we can start looking at your questions as well. Starting with the presentation. Starting with the quote of the week: the only thing that stands between you and your dream is the will to try and the belief that it is actually possible. As they say, where there is a will, there is a way. So if you have willed it within yourself, if you're absolutely determined to make that happen, then the only thing that can stop you from doing it is you yourself. So once you've made up your mind, put in that hard work, put in that effort, go that extra mile if you need to, because it's your will. You want to make it happen. So whatever you will do, it's only for yourself, for your goals, for your aspirations, for your objectives. So make that happen as soon as you can. This is the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Stay up to date on the news and the trends. TikTok, Instagram, of course, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Let's start with the PNP draws. Alberta did conduct a drawing. We were under the impression that Alberta has not conducted draws for almost 5 to 6 months, but they did conduct a draw, which was on the December 8th, but they only announced it this week. So we only got to know about it this week, that they actually did conduct a draw. They invited only 129 candidates, and the lowest score, CRS score, was 305. Now, I know that gets a lot of you excited, but this is also one of the reasons why you should always have your express entry profile valid and active in the express entry pool, because provinces like Alberta, provinces like Nova Scotia, provinces like Newfoundland and Labrador, these are the provinces who can always come to the express entry pool and pick applicants or pick candidates who they might be interested in based on their primary knock code. Now, as far as this specific draw is concerned, Alberta never publishes their exact criteria, what the knock codes were, what was the eligibility criteria, why did they select these profiles. They never announce it, so we don't really know. We can only come to know as the time progresses, when the feedback from the people who have received the ITAs that comes forward, and we know, okay, this was the knock code. But apart from that, there is no way of knowing what and why and how did Alberta choose these 305 people. So if you did not get invited, don't be so distressed, because that's the way how Alberta works. British Columbia also conducted a draw on the 17th of January. They invited more than 187 candidates, and they invited 154 applicants or candidates in the general draw that included the tech occupations. And from the skilled worker and international graduate stream, the score was 105, which actually is a bit high. But the entry level, the express entry and the semi-skilled categories required just a score of only 82. That's also high for that specific category. Prince Edward Islands has also conducted their draw on the 19th of January. They invited 216 candidates, through the labor and the express entry streams of the PEI PNP. Now, they conduct their draws regularly every month. They even announce their schedule in advance. But again, just like Alberta, Prince Edward Islands has never announced its exact criteria. But what we know about Prince Edward Islands and their draws is that they very rarely invite anybody outside the province. Most of these people are usually invited from inside the province, obviously, right? Because they're trying to promote people who would like to stay in the province. And because it's the smallest of the provinces, it has the smallest of the quotas. Therefore, they don't really have any incentive or motivation to invite anybody from outside, because there are so many people who are temporary residents inside the province who are also eligible. So very rarely will you see or you would hear of anybody who was outside the province, outside the country, to be invited. Again, don't fall into the trap of your agents or consultants who tell you that we will lodge your file in Prince Edward Islands, because yes, they can create a profile, but it's not going to take you anywhere. But at the point, the point of this draw again is that if at all you're choosing to move to Prince Edward Islands, if for example you work there for a few months, you're in the critical worker stream, and or if you complete a year of experience, you have the job offer from the employer in Prince Edward Islands, then you could also be qualified under this particular stream and get invited. Arima also had their draw, but this was again last month. Only now this week have they announced the draw and the information. 1,047 skilled workers were invited to apply for PR. And of these, majority of them needed to have a job offer outside of Montreal metropolitan area with a score of 571, high score, and the requirement of a job offer, that too from outside metropolitan area. That's what made it even more difficult, but that's what happened. Express entry, let's talk about that. 5,500 invitations made yet again. Back-to-back draw hasn't happened in a very, very long time. Really, really long time. It happened pre-COVID. I think, I can't remember exactly, but I think it was the draw number 132 and draw number 133. That was a back-to-back. Before that, there was a draw number 123 and 124. I'm just trying to think of the series. These things sometimes they just stick in your head, right? When they have a back-to-back draw. And now we have draw number 237 and 238, which is also back-to-back. There have been, there was also another draw, but what these draws do, or what these back-to-back draws do, is that because they have happened, in very quickly, so 1 week and then the next week, that the number of people who get added into the pool, that number remains low because not much time has passed, and therefore the scores can drop drastically, or there is a big drop in the score, which is what happened in this particular draw, which happened on the 18th of January. This was a consecutive back-to-back draw from the 11th of January draw. The CRS score was 490, which was also a bit of a quandary there, because what happened is earlier when they announced or published the draw, the score was 507. And then when everybody made a noise, and we very quickly realized it is just not possible that the score can be 507, because the last draw was also 507. Then obviously they did amend it, they did correct it to 490. The tiebreaker, and let me take you to more details on this particular draw. Let me come back here. All right. This was the draw, 5,500 invitations, 490 was the score. Now, look at the point in the orange. It says the tie-breaking rule was 24th of November 2022, which is roughly 2 months back. Now, if that was the case, it would have meant that almost all 490s would have been cleared out. However, that is not the case, because a lot of people who are at the 490 score, who have created their profiles before the 24th of November, have still been reporting that they did not receive an ITA. Which then brings us to the point to think that maybe, just maybe, IRCC also made another big boo-boo and actually made a problem, or rather made a mistake with the tie-breaking number as well. So with the amount of feedback that we are getting, we can very safely assume that the tiebreaker was sometime in the month of February or even early March, but definitely no later than that, because people who had created their profiles earlier than February, earlier than March, they have received an ITA with 490. It's only people after who have created their profiles with a score of 490, but after March, they're the ones who have not received the ITA, and that's therefore the assumption that the tie-breaking rule is incorrect over here. The tie-breaking time or the date is incorrect. and therefore people who were at 490s did not receive an ITA. This is the reason why that would have happened. But moving ahead, give you a bit of a snapshot. What also happened, which is also another, as I said, a bit of a bump, glitch, mess, I don't know what to call it anymore with IRCC, but this is how it is. So they have invited 5,500 people. Okay, great, excellent, incredible. But when you see the pool breakdown, the profiles between the score of 601 to 1200, scores of 501 to 600, scores of 491 to 500, the number of profiles that they have given on the pool breakdown, which is here, they don't add up. The total that they exist in the pool with score of 491 and above are a total of 5,916. So if they have invited 5,500, that basically means 416 people with score of 491 and above should still be in the pool. But the score is at 490. And even 490s did receive the ITA. So where are these 416 missing profiles? Which again brings us to the fact that they have actually issued more than 5,500 invitations. I'm assuming they have probably issued about 6,000 invitations in the last draw. They have gobbled up with the first they gobbled up with the CRS score, then they gobbled up with the tie-breaking rule, and they have also 100% gobbled up with the number of invitations that they have issued. Now, after I've seen so much of things that are happening, I'm absolutely certain that the number of invitations that were issued in the last draw was not 5,500, but 6,000. That is the only way you can explain the difference of 416. And also, the remaining portion of about 84 ITAs would have gone to 490s, and therefore the tiebreaker has to be somewhere in the month of February, because we are already in the month of January, so about a month and a half. I'm assuming 84 people would safely can say that they have received ITAs with a score of 490 and still be there. So this is the explanation of all the mess that IRCC created with a simple express entry draw that could have been done nicely and without creating so much of anxiety and issues. However, that's what IRCC is, and that is what they do. Now, what is and how is it looking like as we move forward in express entry? So as of 18th of January, the remaining number of profiles in 491 plus range, as per the calculation of IRCC pool breakdown, should be 416. But I don't think it's 416. I think it's 0, because the number of invitations definitely couldn't have been 5,500. Had to be 6,000. So let's for the sake of argument consider that the number of profiles in the 491 plus range is 0, because they've all been cleared out. The draw on draw. So when I'm saying draw on draw means the previous draw, which was on the 11th of January, and this draw, which is on the 18th of January, the number of profiles that were increased with the score of 500 plus was 1,143. So in the last draw of the 11th of January, the number of profiles which were still pending in the express entry pool with score of 500 plus was about 1,300 something. I don't remember the exact number. Now, because the total number of people in the pool above score of 500 plus was about 2,532, so the difference is 1,143. So these were the number of profiles that were added with 1 week of draw. The reason why this number is very, very, very important, and I will tell you that, is because if you keep your eyes on this number, it tells you how many people are getting added, or the ones who are refusing or declining their ITA, or who are creating their profiles, who are upgrading their scores. Sibling is in Canada or has landed in Canada. They've got their French scores. They've got their IELTS upgraded scores. They have got their Canadian master's degree, or they've completed the Canadian work experience. Whatever that might be, the number of people at the 500 plus range which gets added into the pool every week, every 2 weeks, is a very, very important number, because based on this is how you will speculate how the scores will drop as we move forward with the 480s range. So if 1,143 people were added into the pool in 1 week difference, so on a 2 week difference, which is the regular difference of the draws, you would have roughly 2,500 people who get added into the pool. If you have 2,500, and this is 500 plus, so then you are now looking at 490 plus, right? Because that 490 to 500 is also the range where people get added. So if there are about 2,500 people who get added into the express entry pool every 2 weeks, it basically means that when the next draw happens, The 480s, and let's see how many are the 480s here. The 480 to 490, 481 to 490 is 11,783, which basically means for a lot of people to speculate that 2 more draws and 480s will be cleared out. It's not true, because 480s will not get cleared out in 2 draws. And I just explained to you, if in each draw 2,500 approximately, can be more, can be a little bit less, but it won't be too less. It can't be less than 2,000, because we have been seeing since July the number of people in the express entry pool with 500 plus have been quite exorbitant. So 2,500 is an average that I've been keeping an eye on. And if that is the number, then if there is a draw, for example, 4,500 invitations, let's say next draw is 4,500, it basically means this 2,500 would be with a score of 491 plus. And then the number of profiles that will get cleared from the 480 range would be only 2,000. And if it's only 2,000 people getting cleared, then the scores is not going to drop drastically in 480s range, and 480s is not going to get cleared out in 2 draws. This is the portion of calculation that most people who like to speculate and play with these numbers, they miss out on. They don't calculate that there are a number of people getting added as well. So as long as you have that information, that understanding in mind, you will be able to say that yes, below 490, we've already seen score of 490. Now, below 490, you will definitely see in the next draw, which is in February, 1st February. I am not expecting a draw next week. I know a lot of you are now, because the back-to-back draw has happened, you're now thinking, oh, IRCC wants to compensate for all the missed draw. IRCC is not looking to compensate, guys. IRCC never looks to compensate. If that was the case, can you imagine what they should have been doing in the whole year of the year that has passed, the last 6 months? They should have been issuing, I don't know, 8,000 draws per 8,000 invitations per draw. But no, they're not looking to compensate. They have a quota, they have a target to play with. This year's quota, this year's target is about 82,880. That's the quota for 2023. Plus 20,000. The 20,000 that I'm talking about are the PNPs, because in the express entry draw, you have the PNPs and you have the federal skilled workers and the Canadian experience class and your federal skilled trade categories. The 20,000 of PNPs is basically the 20% of the annual target, because the annual target for this year for PNPs is 105,000 people. People, not applications, people. Now, this 105,000 people, 20% of that is linked to express entry, because again, people forget that all PNPs are not express entry. There are tons of PNPs that are non-express entry. They are not linked to express entry. They are business immigration as well. There are a lot of other streams as well. So they are not linked to express entry, only 20%. So if 20% of that number is here, so we have a total of about 102,000 people that will get invited in express entry. Now, 102,000 people, not applications. Again, people get confused with this. They think it's 102,000 invitations. One invitation is not equal to the number of people, okay? Because in one invitation, you could have a family of 2, family of 3, family of 4, family of 5. I've seen a family of 7 as well. So, with that many number of people in one ITA means one ITA is not equal to the number of quotas, all right? And also with each draw, a lot of people decline their ITAs. A lot of people will get rejected, they will not complete their application. They will not put the correct PCC. They will not provide the correct marriage certificate. They will not provide the birth certificate of their child. Whatever the reason may be, applications do get rejected at the R10 stage. So calculating the number of, or rather the average number of, again, all this information is available on the IRCC website. You have to just look for it. It's under the open source data. The previous year's number of rejections, numbers of refusals, the average of number of refusals and rejection is about 32 to 33% of the total number of ITAs that they issue. Now, and this is including the decline. So people who decline their ITAs, people whose applications get rejected, etc., etc. So IRCC has to issue 30% more ITAs so that they can meet their annual quotas and targets. Also, based on the numbers and calculations, the way we have calculated, one ITA equates to or equals to 2.23 people to meet the quotas. Based on all these numbers, based on all these calculations, in my opinion, in my calculation, I expect the total number of invitations that will be issued in this year in 2023 is roughly 70,000, give or take a few. Could be 71, could be 72, could be 68, could be 69, but approximately that number. And this number can meet the target, immigration target for 2023 and portion of 2024, because you have to keep in mind this whole year the number of people who will get approved will not come this year. They will also come next year and hence go towards a target of next year. A portion of this year's targets quotas have already been met by the invitations issued in 2022. So by you take all these numbers into play, and trust me, sometimes it blows my top as to how these numbers work out. In my opinion, my speculation, the total number of invitations to be issued is 70,000. And because it is 70,000 and IRCC has now already issued 11,000, which basically tells you that only 59,000 invitations are remaining for the remainder of the year. Which then brings me to the whole point that I do not expect IRCC to conduct a draw again next week, because it doesn't make sense. I mean, they've done a back-to-back draw. That's all right. I don't expect them to do another back-to-back draw. It has never happened. If it happens, I mean, trust me, I will be dancing for sure, but I don't expect that to happen. They will go back to the regular bi-weekly draws. So therefore, my expectation is that the next draw will be on the 1st of February. And when the draw happens on the 1st of February, the scores is going to be in the range of about 487, 488. I'm not giving it too much of a drop because, as I said, the number of people who will get added into the pool, scores of 500 plus the number of people who will get cleared out from the 480s range is not going to be more than 2,000 to 2,500. This is assuming that the number of invitations issued is about 4,500, because, as I said, only 59,000 more invitations to be issued this year, which basically has to be spread out. And there is also a Bill C-19, which has been looming around the corner. And so, we have to keep that also in mind. Therefore, the expectation of 480s, and this is where it gets hopeful, 480s expectation is definitely to be cleared out within the next 2 to 3 to 4 months. So if we say even 2,000 480s get cleared out each draw, approximately 2,000, you're looking at about 5 to 6 draws approximately, again, because there is so much of assumption here as to how many invitations, how many people get added, so much of that assumption happening. So you would expect, or you would anticipate, between 5 to 6 draws is what you would say is when the 480s will get cleared out. That's when it hit 470s. Okay, so the only thing is, it's extremely hopeful, extremely exciting, extremely prospective, promising for 480s, but for 470s, you're still on the tenterhook, you're still on the edge, you're still on the fence. And the reason why I'm saying this is because the Bill C-19 is also looming around. And when Bill C-19 comes into play, the whole face of express entry is bound to change, the way they conduct the draws. All that information we will have next month in February. That is when IRCC is expected to make the official announcement of what the categories would be for the Bill C-19 draw. So when that happens, we will all have a much better understanding, much better insight, much better view as to how Bill C-19 will look like and how that will be applied. IRCC already knows what categories they are going to, use. They were only asking for stakeholder information, but I don't think they really had anything in mind there. With Bill C-19, a lot of advantage, or majority of the preference or advantage, is going to go for people who are inside Canada. People with Canadian work experience, people with Canadian education, people who are living in certain parts of country. They will be the ones who will be getting the advantage, majority of the advantage of Bill C-19. And that's how it's going to roll. But we have to keep an eye on what will be the categories that will be opened up for people outside Canada, because they do need some diversity. They do need some mix of the talent that is out there outside Canada who would be coming in. Therefore, the majority of people outside Canada are now going to switch. I mean, not that they were already not doing it, but towards the provincial nominee program. And the provincial nominee programs, in my opinion, my speculation, my understanding, are also going to start changing. Now, whatever are the categories for express entry, I'm assuming the PNPs are going to probably switch from that and choose different occupations, because if federal is going to choose them anyways, what's the point of provinces doing it? Or if provinces are also choosing some or similar of those categories, they would be at a significantly lower CRS range, which would then again open it up for people who are outside Canada. So it's not completely lost. It's not completely doom and gloom. There is opportunity. For example, Ontario. Okay, now Ontario, when they will conduct the Human Capital Priorities Dream, Human Capital Priority Stream draw, then it is going to be at this point of time with this higher cutoff at about 489 if it was to happen today. And then the lower cutoff will depend on how many people are in the pool with that particular knock code. If there is another draw, and I'm hoping human capital priorities draw is held back for at least 1 month to 2 months. And the reason why I'm saying that is the lower they hold, I mean, the longer they hold the human capital priorities dream again, human capital priorities stream draw, the lower the cutoff range for the Ontario draw would be, giving big advantage to people in the 470s, and even 460s may just become possible just because of Ontario's opening up their range, but it'll all be in connection, in tandem with the express entry draw score. I hope you got the gist of what I'm trying to say, and therefore express entry is looking hopeful. It is looking indeed more promising than it has ever been over the last 6-7 months, because 6-7 months has not been very, very nice. Right, moving on with our presentation. In other news, the family relatives are going to become an eligibility criteria for the Alberta Express Entry Program, which is also referred to as the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, AAIP. Okay, so what that basically means is that if you have relatives in Alberta, so relatives here is very specific. It's parents, children, or siblings. No cousins, no friends, no uncles, no aunts, no grandmothers, no. Only parents, children, sibling. If you have them in Alberta, okay, and if your knock code is also something which they are interested in, then Alberta has said that they would be allocating 25% of their express entry linked streams for this particular segment. They have roughly, the quota is about 6,500. They usually give out about 3,400 to 3,300 to express entry. So out of that 25%, you're looking at roughly 800 something to be allocated to people who have a sibling in Alberta. And by that, they can look forward to getting invited as we move forward with the express entry draws in Alberta, the Alberta PNP. So again, this brings me back to the point that if you are a person who is interested in Canadian immigration, you should always have an active express entry profile, because you never know, you could be the next person who Alberta is interested in. So people who have a sibling, make sure you update the information correctly in your application to show that your sibling does reside in Alberta. At this point of time, Alberta has not been indicating as to how long does your sibling have to live in Alberta. At this point of time, that is not indicated. So if your sibling is in Alberta, or if your sibling is planning to come to Canada, landing with COPR, request them, plead with them, beg them to move to Alberta, to move to Calgary, to move to Edmonton, to move to Red Hat, or Medicine Hat. And by that, you can get a great advantage of your sibling being in Alberta, and therefore you being invited for the next Alberta Express Entry draw. What to expect in 2023? I think we've had this discussion quite a few times. And it's back to the same thing. We've been talking about express entry for the last half an hour. I explained to you how that would look like. Still, there are a lot of people who think Bill C-19 is going to ruin their plans. We don't know yet. We do not know if it's going to be a party pooper or it's going to be a big party bang. At this point of time, it's just that we know that it's going to happen. We know that express entry is going to change. We know that the revisions are in play. We know that with Bill C-19, express entry draws will continue. IRCC has already clarified that, specified that in the last announcement, that the express entry draws will continue along with Bill C-19. It's going to happen simultaneously. So you don't have to freak out with the draws not happening. The only point will be that because the draws or the invitations will now be shared between the Bill C-19 and the regular express entry draws, it basically means that the regular express entry draw size will reduce. And because the draw size will reduce and the number of people who keep getting added is big, as we know, therefore it means that the scores are going to remain high. And with that, you can prepare and plan accordingly. The options for people would be provincial nominee programs, of course, first off the bat. Second, if you can improve your scores, if you can improve your English language scores, French language scores, then definitely do that. And if not, then I guess if you can find an employer who can add a job offer to you or who can provide you with a job offer, whether for PNP, whether for express entry, then that can also give you additional points and that can make this happen sooner and faster. That's basically it that I have for you for this presentation. So connect with us, of course, please, through social media, any of the platforms: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you're still here, then by all means, please do hit on that like button, hit on the subscribe button. We want to see those numbers going up. What I also have something else for you guys today, and that is I did a video a few days, I think a week or some days, few days back, and that was about Chat GPT. Chat GPT is the latest rage. I'm not, if you haven't heard about it, I'm not sure under which rock you are living, because Chat GPT is the new text-based artificial intelligence which is now being tested, and a lot of people are getting the hang of it, are getting, are experimenting with it. Now, I did use that as a video a week back, and I explained to you how you can use that to prepare your letter of explanations, to prepare your employment reference letters as a draft if your employer wants to do that, and even to help you with IELTS. So today I'm going to show that to you again as a small short demo very quickly so that we can see what all it can do for you. Keep in mind, when you use Chat GPT, it is not 100% accurate. So that's a disclaimer here. It's not 100% accurate. You still need to check all the details. You still need to check all the information, and you need to make the corrections. And I will show you how that happens. So on your screen now is the Chat GPT page. And I'd asked it to draft an employment reference letter. So I told it, write a draft of an employment experience letter listing down job duties that match with NOC code 21230 from ESDC Canada. That's what I told. And it came down and it gave me duties and responsibilities. I mean, Swedish massage, deep tissue massage, sports massage, treatments, massage therapy, safe environment for client. And it basically picked up massage therapists as the NOC code 21230. Now, I know all you IT professionals out there are laughing because NOC code 21230 is actually software developers or computer developers. So I told ChatGPT, NOC 21230 is not massage therapist, it's actually a software developer. So then it says, okay, I apologize for the confusion. So this is like your artificial intelligence talking to you. And here is the revised draft of the employment experience letter for a software developer matching NOC code 21230. And this is when it gave me exactly what I was looking for. Designing, developing, and maintaining software applications, writing code in various languages, Java, Python, C++, collaborating with cross-functional teams, conducting code reviews, testing, Trust me, this is a great letter for a NOC code 21230 for software developers. Okay, if you're not satisfied, then you can also take a look at the real NOC code 21230, and this is where it tells you it writes code, it maintains the existing software programs, identifies communication, and identify and communicate technical problems, prepares reports, assists in collection of documents, blah, 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 blah. And you get the gist of what I'm saying, right? So if you have the NOC, so what I'm trying to say is if you're using ChatGPT, give it specific instructions and don't just don't accept blindly what it says. Make sure you make your you check yourself as to what it is providing you as well. However, as we move forward, then it said, is this draft as per the employment reference requirement of IRCC in Express Entry? I'm asking it, okay, now is this correct? So it says the draft is a general template for an employment experience letter, and it contains the information that is typically included in such a letter. However, it is important to note that the requirements for an employment reference letter for Express Entry may differ depending on the program and country of origin. Keep in mind, Express Entry is not a program. Express Entry is a software. It's a application management tool. The program is Federal Skilled Worker, Canadian Experience Class, and Federal Skilled Trade category. So that's what it is referring to. And it says further, Express Entry is managed by Immigration, IRCC. They require the reference letter to be written on the official letterhead of the employer, signed by a senior official of the company, such as Human Resources Manager or the company owner. The reference letter should include detailed information about the applicant's job duties, duration of employment, skills that the applicant has developed, and that are relevant to the job. So it's telling you further what your letter needs to include. Okay. So therefore, it's making a lot of sense. Then I asked it, can you prepare a letter for NOC 1111? Now I use the old NOC 2016, and not the NOC 2021 teer NOC, because ChatGPT does have a lot of restrictions, a lot of limitations, because it's still in the beta stage. So they haven't updated information after 2021. So I still use the old one. And again, it was able to give me detailed knock duties for knock code 1111, which is for an accountant. And then I asked it, can you describe these duties in a better manner? Because I did not like a one line duty. So I said, I don't like these one line duties. Can you do a better job of this? And then it came back and gave me a more detailed description for each duty. Again, matching with the knock code 1111. So you can see, you can really use this tool to draft your documentation, to draft your letters, and it can work very well. Okay. So therefore, please do give it a try. Now, I've also done it for knock 1311, which was bookkeepers and accounting technicians. And then after all this was done, I have asked it to, let me show you another one. Now, I asked it, can you correct my English for an IELTS exam? And this is really where it gets very interesting. Of course, I'd be happy to help you improve your English for the IELTS exam. Here are the few general tips that might be helpful. So you can even use this tool to help you prepare for your IELTS exam. And it'll tell you how you can do it. Practice. The more practice, paying attention to the grammar and vocabulary, use online resources, get feedback to your writing, take advantage of the resources, Okay. Then I asked, can you do a legal submission? It can do a legal submission as well. All right. And then I will show you something else that it did right here. How can ChatGPT help me improve my English for an IELTS exam? And it gives you how it can help you do that. Vocabulary building, grammar practice, reading practice. So it says, I can help you practice your grammar structures and rules by providing explanations and examples. Reading practice. I can provide you with reading passages that are similar in style and level of difficulty to those used in IELTS exam and help you understand and interpret them. Amazing, incredible, isn't it? Writing practice. I can provide you feedback on your writing, including grammar, vocabulary, and overall coherence and organization. Amazing again, right? Listening practice. I can provide you with the audio recordings of spoken English similar to those in IELTS listening section and help you understand and interpret them. Wow. So as we go, it is telling you exactly how this tool can help you prepare for your IELTS exam. Then I said, can you elaborate on point 5 as to how can I do that in ChatGPT? The point 5 was about the listening. How can it help? Okay, how can it? So it's telling me now, provide me with a listening passage or audio recording, and then I will help you understand it better. Ask me to summarize the passage, ask me to describe or transcribe the audio, and this way it can help you understand this better. Then I asked, can you also offer assistance with French language for language exams for TCF and TF? And it said, yes, I can offer you assistance even with the French language examinations for TCF and TEF exams. And this is how it can help you prepare that. Voila. I mean, like, what else would you actually need except having this kind of a tool at your fingertips? You can improve your English. You don't have to pay to anybody out there, to check your reading, to check your writing, to check your writing passage. You can get it done yourself. Not only will you get great feedback, it will be much more better than a lot of those wannabe IELTS instructors who basically have just cleared themselves by struggling and now claim to be IELTS instructors. So forget about them. Do it yourself. Use a tool which is much more grammatically sound and will give you very detailed feedback. Trust me, I've tried it and it works extremely well. But you have to try it yourself. You have to use it. You have to experiment it and let it flow. And this can really help you get your English better. And of course, now that we are talking about French so many times in terms of how you can improve your points, CRS score, and for PNP with French, then this can also help you with your French exams, for your French TCF and TEF exams for Express Entry or Canadian Immigration. So give it a shot, and this can really help you. That's pretty much all that I had for you for today's session. But now let's take a look at the question. But in the meantime, please, if you are still here, then I want to see those likes going up, because the likes will help the video go out to more people. And also do subscribe to the channel, because I would like to see those numbers going up as well. So let's start with the questions. My sibling info was not mentioned by my consultant on my study visa application. Is that going to be an issue with my PR application, or do I need to submit both my old and new passports? Okay, so as far as passports are concerned, you only need to submit your most recent current passport. You don't need to submit your old passports. Don't worry about the stamps. Don't worry about your travel history. IRCC is not going to do an administrative check that do your stamps match with your travel history or not. A lot of people think my travel history is on my old passport. How will IRCC know? IRCC is not looking to check on that. They have different ways to check that. So you only need to upload your most recent valid current passport. That is the requirement. As far as not mentioning information on your past study visa application, now that's a big boo-boo. You cannot make that kind of mistakes, because that can directly relate, or that can directly indicate it as misrepresentation. Now, if your information about your sibling was not mentioned on a study visa application, please make sure that you do include the family information correctly, because if you will not mention your name of your family member even now in your application, it would have long and far-reaching implications, because then in future you will not be able to, your sibling will not be able to claim any points, and of course this will also be misrepresentation. So don't do that. Please make sure you add your siblings' details in your application at this point of time. What to do if the language test passes the 2-year mark after I got my ITA and before I submit my papers? This is another issue that a lot of people have confusion with, the language tests and the validity. Now, I understand IRCC website at some places say that the language tests are valid from the date, 2 years from the date of the results. However, when you're creating your Express Entry profile, it checks your date of the test, and that's how it checks. It checks whether you're eligible or not. So in my opinion, you should always go with the date of the test as the eligibility date for 2 years validity of your language tests. If you have received an ITA and after that your language test expires, then you need to redo your tests, and you will need to provide a valid report, test report, at the time of submitting your application. Your language test results have to be valid at the time of your AOR, at the time you submit your PR application. After that, it can expire and it's not a problem. Okay. When do you think the 486 mark to be hit? That is, again, we've discussed this in detail, and 486 should hit soon based on how the draws happen. And if the number of people in the pool are not that high, you will see the scores getting hit sooner than later. But yeah, 480s should get cleared out within the next few draws. Waiting for the medical biometric after nomination, Saskatchewan EEOID from 5 months. Any remarks? Well, the average time to receive AOR for a non-express entry application is anywhere between 6 months to 10 months. So probably that is how you would receive yours as well. What to do if your citizenship is stuck at oath for over a year? You can reach out to your MP and have them push your application, or at least ask why is it stuck. You can raise a web form and request IRCC to figure out what is happening. Keep in mind, there are still 300,000 applications which are still in the backlog for citizenship at this point of time. I got my PCC in November, but my application was rejected for being incomplete. Got a new ITA. Should I get a new PCC for these 2 months? Old is acceptable. What if it expires during processing? Police clearance certificates need to be valid on the day you submit your PR application. After that, if they expire, that is not a problem. The police clearance certificate from the country of your residence are valid for 6 months. From any country which is not your country of residence, you must obtain the police clearance from outside that country, and it remains valid until your next visit to that country. That visit could be even for 1 day, could be for a few hours. If you visit that country again, then the police clearance becomes invalid. You can provide a cover letter to these kind of police clearances, which you obtained long back when you were outside that country, saying that you got that police clearance while you were outside that country, and that you haven't returned back, and that it can be considered as valid because it includes your entire duration of stay in that country. Biometrics update. In your experience, how long does it take to receive ECOPR application submitted on 14 December? The average processing time for express entry applications is about 6 months, so you can expect something within that range. I just entered the pool at 472. I'll lose 5 points in April for age. Should I push for French or apply for study visa? What would you do if you were me? Well, I would want to save myself money, and that is the most important factor. If you were to come to Canada to study, first of all, that study would happen only by September this year, because that's your next intake. If you were to study in September, calculate 1 year for studies, In that 1 year, you would have lost 5 more points for age, and you would get only 15 points for 1 year of diploma. So the net result, or the net, the difference that you will have is only 5 points. So is that even worth it at this point of time? I would say not. And it's not like international students have it easy. They are also struggling to find pathways, whether it's through express entry or otherwise. Therefore, the much better bet would be to spend that money which you would have spent on a college education, which basically you're not studying for the reason of education, but for points, is to spend that money on yourself, take up French, add French points, because French points will not only increase your points in express entry, but will also give you advantage in Bill C-19, will also give you advantage with PNPs. So if I were you, I would go with the French as a second language option, then to study in Canada if it was only for 1 year, and the advantage was going to be only 5 points for me. Yeah, so that's what I would do. Express entry pool, my question is, till when I need to have IELTS unexpired bands? Until your application is submitted for PR. Do you think a draw will happen this Wednesday? No, I don't think a draw will happen this Wednesday. I mean, in my opinion, I don't think it will happen this Wednesday. Ishan Shukla, thank you for the super chat. Spouse is on a study permit. I'm going to apply for spouse open work permit soon. I live and work in the US. If she visits me for 1.5 months, will there be any impact on my application, which will be in progress? No, there will be no impact on your application. If your spouse who's on a study permit visits you outside Canada, it will not impact your spouse open work permit application in any manner. If you're making an application, by all means do. You are submitting an application based on your spouse's study permit and your spouse being in a good standing as an international student in Canada. Therefore, if your spouse chooses to travel outside Canada while your spouse open work permit is being processed, then it will not impact your open work permit application at all. There is no issues. Okay. Raghuram, thank you for the super chat. Expecting ITA, accompanying spouse in the next draw. My spouse is currently in India, also awaiting her spouse open work permit anytime in February. I'm confused about her PCC to submit from India or Canada after coming here. Well, it's not that complicated. If your spouse is in India at the time you're submitting your PR application, then ask your spouse to get a PCC from India, Passport Seva Kendra or DSP office, and then use that PCC for your application. Your spouse can come to Canada after you submit your PR application. That's absolutely fine. If your spouse comes to Canada before you are submitting your PR application, in that case, you will need to get your spouse's PCC from Canada through BLS. That's how you'll do it. Okay, is a 5-day gap between joining jobs okay when I accept the IT and apply for PR for completing 2 years of continuous work experience inside Canada? Absolutely fine. There is no problem. For a Canadian experience class, you can have gaps between the job. That is not a problem. You can have gaps within the job itself. That is also not a problem. You can have multiple jobs. Not a problem. You can have multiple knock codes. That is not a problem. As long as all the knock codes are valid, all the knock codes have a respective valid you are paid for it and it was a valid employment, then you have no problem. For Canadian experience class, it's quite easy. You can claim multiple jobs, you can claim multiple knock codes, multiple periods of work. Gaps is fine, no issues. It's only federal skilled worker. If you are claiming your points for express entry, then you should have at least 1 year of continuous work experience, no gaps, and no multiple knock codes. Multiple employers is fine, but multiple knock codes is not fine. So that is the only difference. But for Canadian experience class, you can have 12 months of 12 employments. So you can have work experience with one employer for 1 month, second for second month, and so on and so forth, all in different knock codes, and that's absolutely fine. You're still eligible in express entry under Canadian experience class. Okay, I moved on a closed work permit to Toronto. If the company doesn't have a project or work assignment in Canada payroll, if I still want to stay here, what should I do? If you're on a closed work permit and if you have been fired, you have been laid off, you don't have a project, you can continue to stay in Canada until the validity of your work permit, of your closed work permit. However, because you're in a closed work permit, you are restricted for employment only with the employer that is mentioned in your work permit. Therefore, you cannot work for any other employer. While you can still stay in Canada, you can still be in Canada as long as the work permit is valid. No problem. You have a valid status. you cannot work for any other employer. That's the only issue. If you want to work for another employer, then you will need to find another employer who is going to process an LMIA for you, and then you apply for a new work permit based on that LMIA, and then you can work for the new employer. Alternatively, if your spouse is also with you in Canada and is on a work permit in Canada, your spouse can apply for a study permit. If your spouse gets approved for a study permit, you can then apply for an open work permit on the basis of your spouse's study permit. That's what you can do. Any comment on not receiving ITA at the score of 490? I think I did discuss this in detail. The scores of 490 have not received an ITA. Some of them have not received an ITA. Some of them did receive an ITA. And I think there is a mistake with the tiebreaker rule. That is the reason why a lot of 490s did not get an ITA. The current tiebreaker rule is mentioned, the tiebreaker date is mentioned as November the 24th. I think that is incorrect. I think the date is somewhere in the month of February or early March. That is the only thing that explains why a lot of 490s did not get an ITA, whereas some 490s did get an ITA. How frequently does Alberta conduct draws? The latest draw conducted for CEC. First of all, Alberta does not conduct program-specific draws. They conduct express entry-based draws. The last draw they have conducted was in December. On the 8th of December, the score was, I think they issued about 129 invitations, with the CRS score of 305 and above. Now, Alberta does not announce or does not schedule its draws, and neither do they announce the criteria or selection of their draws. But based on how they conduct the draws, the only way to do it would be to have an active express entry profile ready at all times, so that whenever they do conduct a draw, and if your knock code is something that they're interested in, then you would be eligible and get invited. Okay, I have 5 years of experience is knock code. Can I choose my primary knock code to target? Well, I'm not going to look at the exact knock codes or whatever you said. Well, you should choose your primary knock code in which you have the most amount of work experience, because if you're a federal skilled worker, that will give you the eligibility points. But and depending, if you have different knock codes and you do not really have a problem with the eligibility points, then choose the primary knock code which is considered to be in demand in any of the provinces, for example, Ontario, Alberta, or Nova Scotia for that matter, and that is how you would go about it. I'm a resident of UAE for last 12 years. I have an approved LMIA. Can I apply a work permit from India as a citizen of India? Shall I withdraw my profile from Express Entry Pool? CRS is 482 until 20th of March. You can, if you are approved LMIA, of course you can apply for a work permit. You can be any part of the world, that doesn't matter. If you have an approved LMIA, you are qualified for the job, you most definitely can apply for a work permit. You don't have to remove your Express Entry profile. You can have an Express Entry profile, and you can, at the same point of time, apply for a work permit for your LMIA as well. Okay. Is there any chance for CRS score 400? In my opinion, nope. In my opinion, not for federal skilled worker for sure, because of the number of people in the Express Entry pool. 400 has never been hit. Canadian experience class, again, it's who can say, right? Anything can happen with Canadian experience class. And so therefore 400 CRS is that. But given the circumstances, given the trends, given the information available, given what is happening right now, I don't see any likely possibility for score of 400 to get hit at this point of time. Okay, what is the knock code? Please check the knock database. That will tell you what the knock code is. Okay. What should be the reason for explain why your spouse is not accompanying? It's been asked after receiving ITA. It's not mandatory. Do I really need to mention anything? I did it to boost CRS score. Well, you have to mention whatever is applicable to you. I can't tell you why your spouse is not accompanying you. We have seen certain PFLs, procedural fairness letters, coming to people who mentioned that they did it to boost their CRS score because that was considered as you manipulating the Express Entry system for boosting up your points. So it's a call that you will have to take. You don't have to mention it because it's not a mandatory field, but IRCC can always come back and ask you for explanation as to why your spouse is not accompanying. So you should have a reason to give as to why your spouse is not accompanying you. Working in a tech company in Alberta, cannot apply under CEC. I'm yet to complete 1 year. Should I apply under FSW to avoid Bill C-19? If you are working for a tech company in Alberta, then my friend, you should create an express entry profile under federal skilled workers and then apply under the Alberta accelerated tech pathway by creating an expression of interest and using your job offer to making an application for your application for nomination under the Alberta accelerated tech pathway. I'm not sure why you're not already doing it. That would be a great opportunity for you. I have 487 with points booked for new exam. New exam result will be available on Feb 11. What should I do if I get invited on Feb 1st? Well, if you get invited on Feb 1st, you can choose to use your new IELTS scores or choose not to use your IELTS scores. Then those new IELTS scores will not matter, right? Because you've already been invited. I had 490 in the last talk, created my profile in May, but did not get called. Should I be worried? Do you think next draw they will call me? I'm thinking of creating a new profile. No, I think you're fine. It is an IRCC's mess. Don't worry about it. You would get invited in the next draw whenever that happens. Don't have to do anything with your express entry profile. In my opinion, I think it's just a problem with their tie-breaking date that they have announced. It was not correct. So it is quite possible that you created your profile after the tie-breaking date, and that's why you were not invited. Okay. Do I need a PCC if I live in Canada? It's a frequently asked question. No, you don't need a police clearance if you live in Canada or if you have lived in Canada in the past. Police clearance from Canada is only required if IRCC asks you for it specifically. In most cases, they don't, so you don't have to worry about it. IRCC website also very clearly says that if you are in Canada, you do not need to provide a police clearance from Canada. So that does it, right? What are the chances of getting a job with an LMIA before my visitor visa expired, that before the 6 months are over? Well, it's extremely difficult because, and I've explained this before, for you to be expecting that you will come to Canada on a visit visa and get an LMIA easily is not true. Because for an employer to offer you an LMIA related job, you have to have skill sets that are exceptional, that are something totally different that employer cannot find in Canada. Or the employer is your relative, friend within your network of influence, or you are going the illegal route of getting an LMIA in exchange for money, which is of course illegal and could land you into serious trouble. But apart from that, in most cases, you may not find an LMIA for a job because you are in Canada on a visit visa. I'm not saying it does not happen. I'm saying in most cases, it may not happen, or it's not as easy as you might think, or it's not a walk in the park. It can happen. Of course, you come to Canada on a visit visa, you find an employer, the employer is very interested in your background and your profile, and the employer provides you with an LMIA. Absolutely possible, but it's not easy. It's not something which you should take for granted. It's not something which will happen automatically. There are a lot of people who say that you can come to Canada on a visit visa and you can get it converted to work permit. Conversion to work permit does not happen automatically. You need an LMIA, and getting an LMIA is not easy, but it's technically possible. Yes. All right, last few questions before I scoot off. Do I need a PCC from home country if I live in Canada during the application? Yes, of course, you need a PCC from your home country, provided you lived in your home country for 6 months or more in a row within the last 10 years or since the time you turned 18. Not applying PNP because it comes off with the restriction of staying in Alberta. My score is 501. Okay, get it. All the best. Do I need a PCC from Toronto Police if I live in Canada? No, you don't unless IRCC specifically asks for it. I'm unable to find anything related to gift deed on IRCC website. Please help. Well, you will not find anything related to gift deed on IRCC website because it is not something which IRCC insists upon. What IRCC insists upon is proof of funds. Proof of funds should be the funds that belong to you, that are unencumbered, that are not taken as a loan. Now, people, what they do is, because they do not have sufficient proof of funds, so a lot of money is given to them by their parents, by their siblings, by their relatives, and then they have to now prove to IRCC that this money that they have taken is not a loan. And therefore, what comes into play is a gift deed. Gift deed basically then proves to to IRCC that, hey, this money has been given to me as a gift. The person who has given it to me as a gift, my parent, my sibling, does not want it back, and therefore this money belongs to me. It is unencumbered, it is not a loan, and therefore please consider it as a proof of fund. And that is what gift deed does for you, and that's what it means, and that is why you don't find it on the IRCC website. Document required for job verification after IT. You need an employment reference letter. Employment reference letter should include the period of work, the working hours, the salary, the job title. It should be on the employer's letterhead. It should be signed by the employer, as in the authorized signatory. It should be accompanied with proof of salary as well. And of course, it should include the job description. The job description is extremely important and critical. It should match with the knock code that you have chosen. In addition to that, you should provide proof of salary. So if you're a Canadian experience class, you should provide pay stubs, T4s, notice of assessments. If you are a federal skilled worker or federal skilled trade category, then you should provide pay stubs, bank statements that show salary credit, and or income tax returns, Form 16s, or whatever that might be, or even the pension certificate from your country that shows a regular's deduction or salary was being transferred. Okay, last couple of questions. A personal loan will cause any issues in proof of funds? I have a loan, but with one back, but funds in another private bank. As per IRCC is concerned, you are expected to disclose all your liabilities, including all kinds of loans. What we should also do is either you provide additional funds to cover that loan, or you pay off that loan, or you provide IRCC with a good payment plan which shows that this loan will not impact or affect your proof of funds. Because if you have a loan, you have a proof of funds, that loan basically means you don't really have the proof of funds because you have to pay the loan. Therefore, if you are able to explain to IRCC that this is how you plan to clear your loan, this is your payment plan, and once you move to Canada, let's say you have an education loan. So let's say your parent gives you an affidavit saying that they would take over the loan. You have a car loan. You can say, once I move to Canada, I will sell my car. If you have a home loan, you can say, once I move to Canada, I will sell my property and I will clear the loan before I move. But you need to tell IRCC, you need to explain your payment plan and give them an understanding of how your loan does not impact your proof of funds. But you should disclose all your liabilities, all your loans. That is a requirement. That's how you'll do it. Well, that's basically all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining in. If you still haven't subscribed to the channel, then please do. I would like to see those numbers going up. And if you wish to make an appointment with me to discuss your profile, your background, your case one-on-one, then please, by all means, do. Please note, when you do make an appointment, it's not that I have any magical solutions. I don't have any magical pathways. I don't have any hidden pathways. Everything is there on IRCC website. All I can do is I can help you interpret some of the programs that you may have not understood properly, or you may have not been able to identify properly. But if you book a consultation and you think I will have some magical solution for you, I will not. I will probably only be able to explain to you and tell you what's already available. Most of it I tell you here anyways when I do my weekly roundups. So, but if you have any question, any doubt, any something about your application which is bothering you, then by all means do book a consultation and we can discuss that in one-on-one. And of course, if you wish to take up our services, then obviously we are a full-fledged immigration company. That is the email. Drop us an email. We'll be happy to handle your application for you, whether it's study, visit, work, LMIA, business immigration, startup visas. We do it all. That's it for me. Thank you so much for joining in. I shall see you next time. Until then, stay safe, take care, and stay forever hopeful.